Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, I've got a brand new spoiler for you. That's right, spoiler season. I don't know if it's actually starting or if they're just like, hey, like we've got like some stories and kind of like during some of those stories, like we put out just like an image at the bottom of it and here's a spoiler. But yeah, the very first spoiler of spoiler season, kind of, because we had the spoilers back in like end of October for some reason for this, but regardless, yeah, first asterisk right there, spoiler, let's jump into it. So, and Moxfield already has this up on their site as well, and this is the art that they chose for it. The Lifecraft engine is the brand new spoiler that I'm gonna dig into and talk about what kinds of creators might want to utilize it. It's a very cool card. One that I think does have a good amount of potential because of what kinds of decks, again, might want to utilize it. A 4/4 vehicle for 3 mana. As it enters, choose a creature type. So, yeah, whatever creature type you want. I mean, specific decks will care. Other decks probably won't care all that much, but those decks might not utilize this. Creatures you control, vehicle creatures you control, I should say, are the chosen creature type and to their other types. And each creature you control of the chosen type other than this vehicle gets ++1. And it's got crew 3. Choose your own destiny. That is the flavor text on this one. So this is a brand new vehicle, but unlike other vehicles, this is one that, again, a different type of deck might want to utilize. And that is, of course, tribal decks. Tribal decks might want to utilize this because it is a 3 mana anthem for your tribe that also can become a 4/4 creature. And if you also happen to have any other vehicles for whatever reason in that tribal deck, then there you go. You also get to capitalize on those vehicles, making them into that tribe, and of course getting this tribal benefit, and potentially other benefits as well that you have in the deck too. So this is, again, just kind of, it shows the, again, evolution of Magic and where we are at, because anthems originally were, 3 mana anthems, essentially, like Gaia's Anthem, like that kind of stuff, essentially, and it cost you 3 mana, specific colors, and it was like nothing else. That being said, this one, of course, is not just all of your creatures, but for the decks that are using it, typically it's going to be all of your creatures. Whether you're like in an all vehicles build, it's going to be all your vehicles because they change that creature type and they get all that, ++1 or whatever. And also in any kind of a tribal deck, say elves, the vast majority, if not all your creatures are going to be elves. So it is, again, like a 3 mana anthem that is also potentially a 4/4 sometimes, which, again, with that kind of, with that anthem effect with it, it also helps kind of pump those creatures, crew it easier. It can make it a lot easier to crew this because, again, it's crew 3, but if you got a 2/2 in play, and that's an elf or whatever, and you say elf, now it's a 3/3. That can actually just crew this, so do keep that in mind. And of course, there's some weird, wonky things you can do with, it changing your vehicles and other creature types. There's some really cool things you do with that, like Maskwood Nexus type stuff, but not out of your deck, just in play. That being said, there are certain commanders out there that are absolutely excited about this one, and let's talk about those right now so you can see if you've got one of those commanders, this might be a card for you to look out for. And the first one that came to my mind was Magna Brazen Outlaw. Yeah, Magna can be incredibly powerful with the right build. A 2/1 Dwarf Berserker for 2 mana and red. Other dwarves you control get +1/0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create treasure token. Sacrifice 5 treasures. Search your library for an artifact or dragon card with that card on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. This seems like a slam dunk in a Magna deck because, well, again, you're basically giving Magna an outlet to actually tap your creatures. Vehicles already can be good in a Magna deck because now your dwarves, including Magna, of course, can tap to crew that vehicle. But now you also have a vehicle that is also a dwarf, so when it becomes tapped, then therefore, yeah, you can actually, get some treasures out of that too. On top of all your other vehicles, when you say dwarf, when that one comes into play, all of them become dwarves as well, which allow them to also make treasures too. So then you can go search up more, vehicles potentially with artifacts or dragons or some really broken things. You can definitely do some combo-y things with that too. So yeah, Magna is definitely a good choice. On top of also Magna's Anthem, again, giving your dwarves +1/0, meaning that your dwarves now get +2/+1 overall, which is quite nice for you to pump your team if you're going to be aggressive with that as well, and not just, get dwarves out, tap, combo off, win. Yeah, that works too. Okay, next up. Shorai Genesis Engine. A vehicle commander itself, the only one actually out there, again, an 8/8 vehicle, 4/4, not the only vehicle commander, but the only commander that is a vehicle, there we go, for 4 mana in Azorius, pay 1 tap, draw 2 cards, discard a card, create a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token. With this creature, crews vehicles as though its power 2 greater, crew 8, and it can be your commander. Now, here's how this helps you in quite a few ways. Again, Shorai probably should be considering this one pretty heavily, depending on the build. But basically, this is, again, a great anthem for you that pumps your commander slightly, which is nice. It turns Shorai into whatever you say it's going to be. Most likely, you're actually going to choose Pilot, depending on the build. Again, depending on the build, but you might just choose Pilot, because when you do that again, you pump those pilots that this makes. So instead of making 2 1/1s, you're making 2 2/2s every single time, or sorry, 1 2/2, I should say. You're not making 2 each time. You're drawing 2 cards, discarding one card, and then making a 1/1. You make a 2/2 instead, but it crews at 2 greater. There we go. So now it is going to be able to crew for basically 4, which is half of Shorai Genesis Engine. So if you've got 2 of those pilots in play, again, thanks to that anthem, all of a sudden you can crew Shorai with just 2 pilots instead of usually you would need 3. And of course, any other vehicles can be more easily crewed as well. All your pilots tapping to crew 4 can pilot most vehicles out there. And if not, you're going to be able to pilot basically anything with 2 or less pilots. So yeah, this can be very, very good for a Shorai vehicle build. The anthem is very nice for all your vehicles. And of course, it is nice for your pilots as well. And now all your vehicles are pilots and your pilots are vehicles. And yeah, it's quite fun. I mean, your pilots aren't vehicles, but you know what I mean. So it can be a lot of fun for a build like this, and actually quite powerful in many ways. Moving on, Aela, Artful Provocateur, 8/2/3. Fairy Warlock for 4 mana in Esper, flying, death touch, lifelink. Other creature control with flying, a +1/0. Whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, make a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. So this one is one that, again, if you are building an Aela deck, you can go about it in a bunch of different ways, right? But one way is kind of like just go wide with a bunch of anthems. Again, anthems that are artifacts or enchantments. And this is yet another anthem that is an artifact or an enchantment, obviously being an artifact. Being able to play that, you get a fairy, and you also pump to make all your fairies even bigger. So again, you have any other vehicles in play, cool, that helps too, but you might not have any vehicles in this deck, and that's okay. But what you're doing, again, is making your fairies get an extra +1/0. You're making extra fairy. You're going wide as well as going tall at the exact same time, and that can be very impactful for you. So again, Aela, already a very powerful commander. Depends on which build you go. You might just like, oh no, I'm just going all artifacts or all enchantments. You might go a mix of both, but yeah, if you are focusing in on anthems, or if you're focusing in on, say, just artifacts, this is definitely one you might want to consider. And if you've got an Aela vehicles deck, which you very well might, because again, this makes basically, again, kind of pilot-ish things, kind of like Shorai does, then all of a sudden you can make those fairies, again, crew much easier for your vehicle. So again, it is a very good card to consider for vehicle, anthem, and also artifact builds around Aela. So there you go. Next up, in a somewhat similar vein, we've got Kaikar Wins Fury, a 3/3 bird wizard for 4 mana in Jeskai. I almost said Esper there. Flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying and sacrifice a spirit, add red. So again, in yet another way, you can actually go, oh, okay, I'm actually just going to build Kaikar anthems and go wide with that. I think I did an episode on that one, so make sure you check that one out. That being said, yeah, you can go in that direction. You can go artifacts. You can go spirits if you want to as well. And when you are picking, again, when the new vehicle comes into play, of course, you're going to pick spirit. You pump your team, which is quite nice. But also, you can sacrifice spirits too to add red, which includes your vehicles now. Your vehicles, again, are going to be spirits as well. So you can sacrifice them for mana when you need it. So definitely keep that in mind. So it can be a good way to kind of like store up mana, because of course vehicles are a bit hardier than just say a creature, because they can kind of be turned into a creature, turned off from being a creature essentially. So when they're not a creature, they can avoid certain board wipes. And then if you need mana later, you're like, oh, my board just got wiped. I've got some vehicles in play, sure, but I've got like this massive spell to cast essentially, and that could probably win me the game. So maybe you can sacrifice a couple of vehicles to like get to that amount of mana that you need, or like a desperation play, like, oh, I'm 1 mana off from my counter spell, and that player is playing like a I win the game kind of a card. I need that extra 1 red mana, essentially sacrifice one of my vehicles that's in play and do that. So you can do some surprising plays with that too. Again, being able to change your vehicles into, being able to change your vehicles into spirits as well, or again, any other creature type, essentially can be very impactful in certain tribal builds, or again, certain builds that work with vehicles as well as, again, artifacts, depending on whatever kind of build you're going with this one. Again, I think it's got a pretty broad appeal that's kind of unlike a lot of other vehicles, where a lot of vehicles are very specific to just kind of chuck a bunch of vehicles into a deck and it's a vehicle deck. This one's like, oh no, there are tribal implications, there's anthem implications, there's a lot of ways to go about this. Finally, Deala, Pilot Exemplar. This one really hits home with this one a lot. A 3/3 dwarf pilot for 3 mana in Boros. Other dwarves you control get ++1. Each vehicle you control ++1 as long as it's a creature. When it becomes tapped, you may pay X. If you do, reveal the top X card of your library, put all dwarf and vehicle cards from on them in your hand, the rest bind your library in a random order. Yet again, this is a commander that not only pumps your dwarves, but also pumps your vehicles. And now it does double the pump for your vehicles because your vehicles are now dwarfs. Does that make sense? So basically, again, being able to play this Lifecraft engine, choose dwarves, now your vehicle are those, all of a sudden your vehicles are getting what, +3/+3 in total in combination with Deala as well as Lifecraft engine because they are dwarves. They get +1/+1 from this, ++1 Lifecraft engine for being a dwarf, and then also because they're a vehicle too, and a vehicle creature, I should say. So yeah, this is definitely a great way to really hit home with a Deala, Pilot, Exemplar, dwarf deck / vehicle deck, combination of both. And of course, obviously vehicles are very good to get Deala tapped, so you could actually get things off the top of the library. And of course, with Lifecraft Engine 2, outside of the vehicles that you're pumping, you're also pumping your dwarves even further. So yeah, there's a good amount of cards out there. There's a good amount of commanders out there that could be considering this one for their decks. Again, unlike a lot of other vehicles, which might be a bit more specific, this one's actually kind of broad as a vehicle and the types of decks that might want to consider it. You got tribal implications, artifact implications, vehicle-specific implications, anthem implications. There's a good amount of cool things that you can do with this one, as well as, I'm sure, some really weird, wonky things, like turning your vehicles into a certain creature type. I'm sure you can do some broken things, too. But yeah, I mean, Magna already can do some pretty broken things. So yes, there's definitely some commanders out there that can consider this one. And yeah, let me know in the comments below. Outside of Magna, Shorai, Aela, I'm trying to remember the Balkai and Deala. There we go, I got there. Make sure you let me know in the comments below what other kinds of commanders might we consider this one. And of course, stay tuned to this channel for more exciting quick takes and spoilers. Spoiler season is just around the corner. And again, we don't know when these spoilers are just going to get placed randomly into stories like this one was. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. As always, comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.